I snagged your rich husband.
The first call I received from my younger sister Lois, who hadn't replied to any of my messages, came just before our mother's funeral.
I just got back from Hawaii with Keith. I brought you some chocolate souvenirs.
Enraged at her thoughtlessness, I lost control and yelled at her in front of the entire family. "You can have my husband, just get to the funeral already." Taken aback by my outburst and what I'd said, Lois could only respond with a bewildered "what?" from the other end of the line. After giving her the address of the funeral home, I angrily hung up. I knew she'd try calling back, so I turned off my phone, sat down in the seat designated for the family, and tried to gather myself. My name is Emily, and I just turned 38. I grew up in a family of 4, my parents and my sister, who's 6 years younger than me. My parents were strict, especially with me, the eldest, but they always spoiled Lois because of her charming looks. Whenever Lois wanted something, she would flash an irresistible smile and say, "Emily, I want this," and I would almost always give in. Regrettably, this habit persisted even after she grew up, and she became an extremely troublesome sister. My father passed away due to illness 8 years ago, and my mother received a terminal diagnosis about 6 months ago. She had been in and out of the hospital. I married Keith, a senior colleague from work, 2 years ago, and moved away from my family home to an apartment near my office. Over the past 6 months, I was driving an hour each way to take care of my ailing mother in between work. Lois had moved back home and quit her job a year ago after breaking up with her then boyfriend. Still, she insisted that I was better at caregiving and kept pushing the responsibility onto me. So I took a month off from work to care for our mother, but despite my best efforts, she passed away 2 days ago. And where was Lois? She had jetted off to Hawaii a week prior. I tried my best to convince her not to leave, but she wouldn't listen and went off anyway. At the funeral, after the priests finished speaking, friends and family began to pay their respects. It was a testament to my kind-hearted mother that not only relatives, but many of her friends also came to mourn. Several colleagues from my company also showed up. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thanks. I'm just grateful that you allowed me to take time off to spend with my mother in her final moments." He's my father-in-law, the president of the company I work for. He's been extremely understanding about my situation and has helped me a great deal. "But where is Keith? I haven't seen him here." "Well, he's been overseas on a business trip since last week and I haven't been able to reach him." "Oh, I see. I'll ask the sales manager about it." For the large company he runs, Keith and I are in different departments. Keith works in sales and he constantly complains, "I'm always busy with business trips." I tried to understand that he was not here during this difficult time, but I was anxious about having to handle everything on my own, and without being able to contact him or my sister. Meanwhile, my father-in-law took time out of his busy schedule to attend the funeral, and his support almost brought me to tears. I felt so grateful for it. I had to hold back the tears that were almost overflowing. In the limo heading to the crematory with the rest of the family, I turned my phone back on, hoping that Keith might have tried to contact me. To my surprise, there were nearly 30 voicemails, most of them from Lois.
Answer your phone. You can't just make up some ridiculous lies because you're upset that I took Keith from you.
What I heard was her yelling voice. She took Keith from me? Have I heard something like that? When she called before the funeral, I was too preoccupied with the handling of the mourners to comprehend properly what she was saying. Lois and Keith are having an affair? No, that can't be true. I was startled and felt sudden agitation. Does that mean Keith was on a trip with her? Seriously? When I hastily checked the voicemail, there were several from my husband.
"Emily, I'm so sorry, but you're a strong woman. You can survive on your own, but Lois, I need to support her, so let's break up."
Hearing his message that sounded almost like a line from a soap opera, I heard myself mutter, "I wish I hadn't heard it. Why did I have to find out that my husband and sister were having an affair and having a great time in Hawaii during my mother's funeral? You need to come right away if you want to say your final goodbye to Mom. We're already heading to the crematory." I reluctantly called my sister and told her so.
"That is not funny. Stop lying. You're just bitter because I took Keith from you."
But it's the truth.
"You must be upset about losing your husband. Yeah, he's the next company president and rich. I understand how you feel, Emily."
So?
"But there are good lies and bad lies, you know. You're an adult. You should know better."
I never thought I'd hear that from you. I was surprised, though I didn't know that you and Keith had been cheating.
I bet.
Lois sounded really happy. Ever since we were kids, she would play tricks on me and laugh out loud when I fell for them. I sighed in frustration. Anyway, it's not the time for this. If you want to say your final goodbye to Mom, come now.
I am tired of that lie.
Then why do you have Keith ask his father? On the other end of the phone, the two of them sounded like they were having a discussion. They probably didn't expect me to bring up his father. My husband, who was apparently right next to Lois, took the phone.
Emily, is that true?
If you don't believe it, do whatever you want. I'm hanging up now. After a while, we arrived at the crematory. This is my last moment to say goodbye to Mom, and my mind is a mess. With the rush of these past few days and the grief of losing my mother, I no longer knew what to do, and I found myself with tears streaming down my cheeks. Seeing me like this, one of my relatives patted my back saying, "Your mom would surely be grateful to you, Emily. You took good care of her until the end." I stood in front of my mother's casket and said my final goodbye. "Mom, thank you for everything. I'm gonna miss you so much." It was right at the moment when her casket was carried out for the cremation. "Wait a minute, where's Mom?" With a loud voice, my sister and husband rushed in. When Lois saw the casket disappearing behind the doors, she tried to cling to it, but the doors are closed mercilessly in front of her. "No, I haven't said goodbye to Mom yet, stop it!" Lois was wailing, and Keith was standing behind her, stunned. "We should move as it's disturbing to others." "Why didn't you tell me, Emily? I couldn't see Mom at the end. It's your fault." "My fault?" "Absolutely. If it was this bad, you should have told me earlier. You never said anything." I can't count how many times I've explained our mother's health condition to Lois. Every single time she'd just brush it off saying, "I don't know how to handle any of this. I'll leave it to you, Emily." "That's right. This all happened because you didn't explain how serious your mother's condition was. It's your fault." Even my husband, Keith, started blaming me. I stared at them in fury. "Then what were you two doing all this time?" I raised my voice. Gasping, they finally fell silent. "If you can't say it, I will. You were on a fun-filled, romantic getaway in Hawaii together, weren't you?" The relatives started to murmur as they had been observing this in disbelief. Up until now, whenever relatives asked, "What's wrong with Lois?" or "Isn't Keith coming?" I've been making excuses for them so that they wouldn't look like the bad guys. "Mom, I'm sorry. I really wanted to say goodbye to you more quietly." Apologizing in my mind, I knew I had to clear up things here and steeled myself. When exactly did this affair start? You knew I was on leave, caring for Mom, right? I was having a hard time. I asked for help numerous times, but all you two did was spend fun time together, didn't you? "Enough, it's all your fault, Emily. It's because you didn't keep Keith close enough." What's that supposed to mean? "You need to prioritize your husband more. He said he was bored at home because all you talk about is work and caregiving. Poor Keith." Oh, so that's what he said. As I glared at Keith, he quickly looked away, avoiding my gaze. "Emily, you managed to marry a rich future company president, but you got conceited. That's why he got snatched away by me. You always do this, Emily." In reality, every time I had a boyfriend in high school or university, Lois stole them from me. The only time it didn't happen was with Keith because Lois was already living with her boyfriend at the time. What a shame. From now on, I'll be with Keith and become the future president's wife, so break up with him. Fine, you can have Keith. I'll divorce him. By then, I didn't care about anything. When I decided to marry Keith, I had no idea he was the son of the president. He was working at a regional branch and came to work at the headquarters in my department. Keith was bright, friendly, and good at connecting with everyone, quickly becoming a part of the team. I started to have feelings for him as he approached me. We started dating, and when he proposed eventually, I happily accepted. It wasn't until I visited his parents' house that I found out his father was the president of the company I worked for. It was a real surprise. "So promise me, don't come back later begging you don't want a divorce." "I won't do that." "You're sure you want to leave me?" "Yes, I am." "If you leave me, no man will marry a workaholic like you. You know that, right?" "I can live my life as I like on my own, but for today, please say your final goodbye to Mom properly." Keith and Lois exchanged looks, smirking as if they'd won. The relatives furrowed their brows watching the situation. "I'm really sorry for showing such an unpleasant scene." As I was apologizing to my relatives, I heard Lois whisper to me, "Always playing the good girl. I hate this about you." I've put up with a lot because she was my little sister, but I'll stop considering her as such. I'm getting divorced from Keith, and I have no family left. All I need to do is prepare myself for that. I bit my lower lip hard. 2 weeks have passed since then. I moved all my stuff out of the apartment I had been living in and started living in a new condominium that I had leased near the office. I even put my parents' house up for sale, and there's nothing left. Lois began living with Keith as I moved out. Of course, Keith and I have already completed our divorce papers and submitted them to the courthouse. I'm sure they're happily starting their newlywed life right now. Well then, I've finished handling Mom's paperwork. Now the revenge begins. Watch over me, Mom. I smiled at my mother's portrait, picturing the events to come. Enjoy your newlywed life while you can, you two. The next day, while I was at the office for my job reinstatement, a lot of voicemail messages piled up on my cell phone.
Hey, what's going on? We're divorced, aren't we? Why do I have to pay $30,000?
Anticipating that they might come to my new place if I leave them alone, I decided to meet at a local diner. As soon as we started talking, Keith was frothing at the mouth and yelling, I received a document from a lawyer. What's this all about? We're already divorced, aren't we? Exactly, I don't understand. I had asked a lawyer to claim $40,000 from Keith as my share of the property and $30,000 from Lois for her part of the medical care coverage for our mother. The documents must have arrived at their place. It's something that they should have expected, but they probably didn't. I was exasperated. You just need to pay what you owe. That's not fair. Listen, don't think you can get away with what you've done. I've suffered from tremendous emotional distress. Should I sue you for that as well? Emotional distress? You cheated. That's a fact. So pay up. They fell silent for a moment, probably realizing they couldn't argue with the law. Then, after a while, Lois started looking down at me. So, Emily, you're just after the money after all. Fine. I'll let Keith pay. If I borrow money from my dad, we can easily prepare the $70,000. Keith, I know you don't have any savings. Lois, are you really okay being with a guy who doesn't have any money? Keith will become the president soon, then he'll be rich. It's just a bit of patience. Oh, Lois, you're after the money too, aren't you? No, I have plenty of love. Dad has been saying for a long time that he'll retire when he turns 65. So in 2 years, I'll be the president. Really? It'd be great if you could really become the president. I'm definitely going to become one. I'm the only son. I wonder. Finally, I couldn't hold back any longer and burst out laughing. I can't believe this. Has she finally lost it? I heard my sister saying. But the real stage of the revenge that I had set up is just starting. Keith, you've been missing work for quite a long time, saying it's because of the family funeral, right? Well, my mother-in-law is family too. That's true. But the company knows what you've been actually doing. Huh? You don't know that your father was kind enough to attend Mom's funeral, do you? I had purposely not informed Keith and Lois about this, so Keith believed that his father knew nothing about what was going on. I've let the company and the president, your father, know that you lied about taking family leave for caregiving and went off to Hawaii with your mistress instead. Oh, that was... You never did any caregiving at all. You have the gall to act so brazenly, and you've been off work with Lois on several of your business trips, haven't you? I've reported that too. How did you find out? Lois has been posting photos on social media showing where and when she went out. Plus, there were a few pictures with you in them. How shocking. Huh? You knew about my social media? It's the same account you had back when you were in high school. Of course I'd know. Lois looks uncomfortable, and Keith is taken aback by my words. Hey, is it true that Dad knows everything? Just as my mother was family to you, your father considered her his family. And of course he would know about the family funeral, as it should be reported to the company. Even after the funeral, he cared about me and had contacted me several times. So I had reported all the past events to him. He is quite furious. Also, he said he has absolutely no intention of making you the next president. Huh? But I'm his son! He said he doesn't remember ever saying that our company follows the principle of hereditary succession. Also, he told me to convey that he doesn't need a son who would do such disloyal acts. Huh? So Keith isn't going to be the president? As I silently smiled at them, their faces turned pale. I decided to press them even more. And just to let you know, I'm becoming the president starting next month. Huh? Actually, I had just received the official notice from the president and my superiors at the company. I have officially been appointed as the new president. There is no way they'd let you become the president. If you think it's a lie, why don't you call your father right now and ask? Keith is frantically calling his father. Lois, his new wife, is watching anxiously. So Emily is becoming the president. It was true. So I can't become the president's wife? If I knew that, I wouldn't have stolen you from Emily. But you just told me you love me. That was including your money. What did you say? I couldn't stand the couple starting their squabble in front of me, and I got up. If you want to fight, do it somewhere else. Oh, I'll be expecting the payment. Thanks. Wait, please don't abandon me. Please support me, sis. I apologize. I deftly sidestepped the hands that the two of them stretched out in desperation and left the place. After that, the two of them ended up getting a divorce. My ex-husband Keith was demoted by his father and eventually quit his job. Now he's working part-time jobs every day to pay what he owes me. Lois is said to be working in a bar at night. Apparently she was doing well at first, but she was fooled by a bad man and ended up in a terrible situation. I've become the president. That being said, it's for a small company that's like a tenant in the main company building, a subsidiary in the caregiving industry that was established based on the proposal I submitted during my caregiving leave. Still, the caregiving business is expected to expand in the future, and I'm expected to do well. I'll do my best from now on.